Welcome to the Early Years Scotland podcast, where we chat with people from the world of early years about the many factors that influence children's development from birth to 5 years and how we play a part in giving children the best start in life. Our role as a leading early years organisation is to provide support through our 4 strands of work: working directly with young children and their families, membership and support, professional learning, and advice and advocacy. Let's get started. Hello, welcome Alison Precup from SSSC. So welcome back to part 2 of this Early Years Scotland podcast. Our first podcast gave us the chance to unpack all the wonders of SSSC and the amazing resources that are available that are perhaps not known about. So we did hear from practitioners and they shared their understanding of the website and the resources, and you were able to contribute to that, which was wonderful. So we decided where next, and it seemed to make perfect sense that we would talk about the 23 Things Leadership resource that's on the website, and you were willing to talk about that, as I know it's something that you're really passionate about. So here we are today to hear more about that. So to kick us off, please tell us more about 23 Things Leadership.
Of course, thanks. Thanks very much, first of all, for inviting me back. I obviously didn't make any mistakes the first time, so that's good. And I'm, of course, delighted to come and talk about the 23 Things Leadership. It is one of our most popular resources, and I'm excited about it. There's a lot to get in. I don't think we've got enough time even to go through all of them, but I just wanted to touch on some of the main points of that. And I suppose the first thing I would say is, what is a thing? Why is it called a thing? Why do we have 23 things? And it took a while for me to understand that as well. And it is something that's come from America, where all these things come from. It started in America in a public library where somebody decided to talk about 23 things as part of their learning. And we took that on board, as did other organisations around the country. We have 23 Things Leadership, but we also have 23 Things Digital, which people can access. And that is taken from what Edinburgh University have done. They did a 23 Things Digital and we followed that as well. So that's why it's a thing. And I know people are always a bit questioning why that would be. In terms of what they are, 23 was seen as short bursts of learning, so that you're not having to trawl through hundreds and hundreds of bits of learning, where we all know that when we start our studying or we start learning anything, you just think, oh no, this is too much, I can't do it. So 23 things, each thing is set out in a way that allows you to learn something quickly. And hopefully, and this is what we expect when we talk about that, is that you would then, how do you use that in your own setting? How will you use this learning? It's a so what question. So what? You've done thing 1 of 23 Things Leadership. So what? What difference has it made? What difference has it made to you, first of all? And what difference has it made to children and families that you work with? So that's a little bit about what we want to talk about today.
Oh, thank you. And that, even in itself, understanding why it's the thing, it actually makes it a bit more accessible. You know, it's not 23 things you must know or do to work in early years. You know, it's 23 things, because we do sometimes struggle for what we call things, don't we? We're like, oh, is it a whatever? So I think that in itself is quite welcoming. So, but it's really good to understand where that came from. So there's 23, and you've told us the rationale. It's short, it's not, wieldy, but where do you start? So if their listeners are hearing, oh gosh, that's right, there is that 23 Things resource, how long will it take me? What do I have to do to access it? So if you could imagine you're a practitioner, you've heard about this on the podcast, what would you say now to someone?
Well, and the first thing I would say is you don't have to do all 23 things. And the other thing I would say is you don't have to start at 1 and work your way up. You can start at 1 if you like. And we do tend to say start at 1 and 2, because that does give you a bit of a grounding on how to complete the 23 things. Each thing has a little bit of an introduction about what that thing is. So, for example, it starts with why is everyday leadership important? That's thing 1. And it goes all the way up to how can I use leadership in my own development and my career. So each thing has a little introduction about what they are. Then we ask you to maybe read something or watch a video. And then we ask you to reflect on what you've seen or read and give us possibly 200 words, the further up the 23 things, we ask for more words, up to about 400. But 200 is usually the average number of words. And to write a reflective account on what this learning has meant for you, how have you understood it, how are you going to use it? Can you give us an example of where you've had to use this before? And I think that's the beauty of it. It's short, as I said earlier, it's a short burst of learning. I would say that people just need to get in and about it. I think they need to just go on the website, they need to look at the different things that are available, and they either look at it as an individual, which is absolutely great, or they can look at it as a team. So you could, with your team, say, right, this month, I want you all to do thing 1 and 2. And then we're all going to come back to a team meeting and we're going to talk about that. And we're going to talk about how we learned that. And then we're going to put it up on our notice board so our parents can see, wow, this staff group have completed thing 1 and thing 2 of 23 things. And I think it's a great, stamp of approval. If you've got parents coming into the nursery, they can see that ongoing learning. I think it's absolutely vital. And I suppose the other part of the 23 things is they're all linked to open badges. And I think I touched on open badges a little bit in the first podcast. And that is what we call a digital badge, a digital learning. It's again something that you can carry about with you. It links very nicely into the new SSSC My Learning app, which people can access on their smartphone. So it's really versatile, 23 things. And there's such a wide variety of information with lots of resources that link out with the SSSC to other organisations. We link a lot into the Care Inspectorate Hub. We link a lot into what Scottish Government are saying. So each resource, each thing has a set of resources that you could link to. And I hope that would be something that people could then take further if they wanted to. They could use it further. But no, I think it's as I said, it's particularly popular as COVID struck, as most people were put on furlough. The increase in number of people that did our 23 Things leadership, I kid you not, went up about 90%. It was huge, huge. And I know I have spoken to people, externally, people who have have done the 23 things. All of them have found them really valuable, all of them, because they're short and they're quick. So I suppose you want to know how somebody actually does it.
Yes, that was my next question. Well, I was going to ask two things. What's feedback? How do you capture the feedback from people who've taken part or engaged with them?
Well, one of the things that people have to do when they do the 23 things is, because it's linked to an open badge, as I said, we ask them to write a reflective account. They send that reflective account into us. We look at it. I'm not going to say we assess it because we're not there to assess anything, but we look at what they've written. Sometimes we'll decline the badge because maybe people, and this is an issue I think and I don't know if you'll agree with this, but sometimes early years practitioners struggle to be reflective. It's a hard thing to be reflective. I think even as Scottish people, we don't like to blow our own trumpet and think about how we've done and what we've done. So sometimes what people have submitted as part of their thing can be very, I did this, and not, well, I did this, and then that meant that I understood this, and that then meant that I had an impact on the children that I work with or the families that I work with. So when people write a reflective account, we really want them, we're not interested in just a list of things. We want them to really have taken that learning and applied it to the work that they do in their own settings. So that's really important. And feedback, I think we don't get enough feedback, Michele. I'm going to say that. We would like to have more feedback. I don't know whether people don't know how to give us feedback. And that's maybe an issue I need to take back to, my team. If people wanted to contact me and say, I did 23 things and I did this and this and I loved it, or I did 23 things, 5, 6 and 7 and I didn't understand it. Wow, that would be great feedback for us, because then we would, we're coming to a point where we want to look at it and change it and adapt it, and, nothing stays the same. Our world, as we all know, has changed dramatically. And so maybe some of the 23 things will need updated from that point of view.
Mm-hmm. Gosh, so many things there. I agree. Reflection is really tricky. I think, as you'd said earlier, the whole so what, and I think that's the message I'm hearing from you. It's not about saying I've completed thing 6, 7 and 9 and I now have an open badge. That's wonderful, and you will have engaged in learning, but so what? What difference will that make to your practice? And I love the idea of you suggesting that teams might pick a thing, because I think as a sector we do like to talk to each other, and we like to say, I know there are pressures on time, but that bite size, and then to bring it to life. When I was doing thing 7 and took to that video, what did you think of that video? Gosh, we could do that in our setting, and it makes it that dialogue, so it takes it from that digital resource, and I would imagine that's the vision. It's not this catalogue of information that will just sit there on a digital on the My SSSC app. It's seen in practice. Yes. So children will feel it, because fundamentally that's what we want. We want children to see and be around practitioners who they feel confident in, and it might just be that catalyst. Thing 10 might be the thing that builds that confidence in a practitioner to say, I can do that, or I do that, and actually here in my open badge I'm going to reflect on it, and I'm going to see how that is making a difference for me. And I like that we did say it in the first podcast, it's not about submitting something to be marked. But I think hearing from you, in SSSC saying almost, don't worry, submit what you think your reflection is. If we feel it isn't reflective, we'll come back and tell you. I think we do worry. I don't know, many people who say, I love doing tests, I love doing assessments. There are, of course, some who do. But generally, if you're sitting in your house and you're going, somebody's going to read this and mark it, we get nervous. I'm going to write the wrong thing, they're going to say that's wrong. So for me, I think that's hopefully for our listeners is one of the catalysts to engage in the things, be it 1, be it 10, is to say, okay, when I do the open badge, I'm not going to worry. I'm going to just write in there what I really think I've learned from this and where the evidence is.
Yes. That's absolutely key. What have you learned? And when we do decline a badge, we give you a lot of feedback. We email feedback. So we'll say, while you gave us this information about this, and this, we want a little bit more about that. So you get good feedback from us if we decline the badge. And I hope that people who, have listened to this and have maybe had their badges declined can take that and use that to build on the next badge you do, or resubmit that badge again. You could resubmit your badge as many times as you want, really, for these things. There's not a limit to that at all. And I think that's a key element too. Of course, I forgot to say the big thing, free resources. People can access them. They don't have to pay anything for that. Don't have to be a member of anything, don't have to join us, just have to go onto our website and you'll find the 23 things. And the 23 things is also a good way to navigate, I think, through what I would call our Step Into Leadership webpage. Our Step Into Leadership webpage has, again, I think I said this in the first podcast, loads of stuff. People get carried off and down rabbit holes, and the frequent thing that's raised with us is, there's too much, and I can't find this and I can't find that. The beauty about 23 Things Leadership is everything that's on our Step Into Leadership page is in the 23 Things Leadership, and if you do them, you will eventually come to what to cover every element, if you like, of that Step Into Leadership. So they go very well hand in hand together, which I think is really important.
And would you say that you have to have completed all 23 things before you would go into the Step Into Leadership?
No. Step Into Leadership is just a lot of resources, a bank of resources. And no, you don't have to complete the 23 things all. We have a few people, we don't have that many people that have completed the 23 things. I would really like to see a lot more people doing it. But again, there's no pressure for people to do it. People can jump in and do thing 2 and then go on to do thing 8. And really, because of the topics that are covered in the 23 things, there might be some people that say, well, I want to learn about mentoring and coaching, so I'm going to go and look at the thing that relates to that. Or I want to look at, how can I empower my staff? So I'm going to look at the thing that relates to that. I wish I could tell you exactly what number of if I was good, I'd be able to tell you each number of these things, but unless I have it in front of me, I won't be able to do that. But it's and you'd be very impressed, wouldn't you? So I think the beauty of it is people say, well, I might have my one-to-one or my supervision, and my manager's saying, it would be really great if you could look at this element of learning, and here's a resource that you could access to do that. But I think one of the most exciting things, and I wanted to share, is that we are in the process of developing a new 23 Things Leadership particularly primed at early learning and childcare.
Fantastic.
And that's really exciting, because the 23 Things Leadership we have now, while it's generic, and it really is, because leadership stretches across whether you look after babies or whether you look after people in their care home, the same leadership capabilities work across all that section, those sectors, And I think, but we heard from the sector that we really wanted something that was really, focused in on early learning and childcare. And so we've listened and we have developed that, and hopefully that will be launched in the next few weeks. So keep your eyes open on the SSSC news. That 23 Things ELC leadership will really focus in on how you become a leader within the early learning and childcare sector, with resources that are linked to all early learning and childcare sectors. Now, that hasn't been that easy, to be honest. It's been quite difficult. There is a little bit of a lack of ELC videos, for example, on leadership. So that's a call to anybody that's a great video maker that might want to take that up. But we could definitely do with more of that, I think. But at the moment, we're in the beginning stages of being able to launch that in the next few weeks. And again, that will change over time. As more things are developed, we'll add that into the 20 things. If a new resource comes out about how to be a leader in a baby room, for example, and there's a film or a video or a clip or something, we'll add that into our 23 Things ELC leadership. So that's really exciting. I'm excited about that. So
very exciting, and I think it does show, that the sector is being listened to, because as much as, just as you've explained, leadership can fit in all contexts, we do connect more when, the links to the videos or the language is tailored to ours. So that is really, a great, by the time this podcast, goes live, hopefully that will be there, and by then people will have been accessing it. But when you're going back to saying about when I asked how do you know, and actually that's again that big thing, which hopefully in the first podcast it was about trying to blur the lines to SSSC as this big bad body, and actually the first podcast really I think did that. So the fact again we're hearing from you to say we want to know, tell us, but that question arises, how do people tell you? We're talking people who are lacking confidence on how to reflect. Would they then feel confident to say loved things 1 to 10 but actually wasn't so keen on thing 11? That's great that you want to know that. So I guess if that were your wish then, so if tomorrow this launched and people were taking part, how would you advise people to get in touch?
I think you could contact, I would say contact me directly. I'd be really interested to hear people's opinions on that. Maybe I'm opening myself up for more work there, but I think that, it's great to hear directly from people. And I forgot to say that also the Care Inspectorate were using, I don't know if they're still, I need to check this out, but for a while one of the questions they were asking as part of their inspection was, do you access the SSSC's resources, which would include the leadership resources? And we do get some stats from them and see that, particularly, as I said, over the COVID period, there was a huge increase in people accessing the leadership resources. So we have other ways of finding that out. We are really interested in hearing how people have found the 23 things. So, people can usually access, our website, go on there, find someone to contact. If you want, I'll leave my details. That might be sensible if you wanted to contact me via email, and I'd be more than happy to hear that. We are doing the evaluation on all our leadership resources, so we're really keen to hear where they're landing and how people are using them and what we need to change. We're really aware that we need to change probably a lot of our leadership resources as we move on, because now we're in the digital world much more than we were, 2.5 years ago. So it's about updating all of that, and I think that's really important that we do hear how people have accessed that and how they're using that.
Great. And as you say, accessible, and it's very engaging, and very device, I can't think of the technical term, it adapts to phones, adapts to iPads, yes. So hopefully for me to look into it doesn't look as a big wordy, wieldy thing. You look at the image and then you look at what's the thing called, so it is very, like a lovely invitation, I think, yes. When you look at it. And I think your point earlier about it's not for these things are not for people who are in promoted posts. These things are for everyone. If it's your first day in practice, it could be for students, it could be for everyone. I think that's the beauty of it, and I think that's would be the very key message that would come from this podcast, is those 23 things leadership are for everyone. Exactly. And then in discussions and supervision discussions, it gives that shared language, and it gives someone who's maybe not experienced, it gives them, that rich dialogue to refer to, and can say, I was reading in thing 4, it was asking about what's your role in relation to, and that would be so lovely in discussions with supervisors, and there could be that lovely professional dialogue. Do you think that, what's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think, I think we said about this in the first podcast. You're right. Leadership is for everybody, whether you open the door to the nursery in the morning, whether you're cooking the lunch, whether you're the manager or the CEO of an organisation. The key thread that really runs through all our resources is that it doesn't matter who you are, it doesn't matter whether you have the word leadership in your title or manager in your title, you do have leadership capabilities. And one of the 23 things, the very first 23 things, which is why is everyday leadership important, talks about lollipop moments. There's a great video there. Drew Dudley does a great video. And it talks about how, he didn't know he had affected somebody's life by walking down a queue of students and handing out a lollipop. And I'm not going to spoil it for you because I'd really love you to all go and have a look at that. But it does make you realise that, particularly I think working with children and young people and their families, everything we do has an impact. Everything we do. And you don't have to have leadership in your title to do that, but you are leading. You're leading a child, you're leading a family, you're working with your colleagues, and you're leading in that way. And I think, to understand that is so important, is that, 20 years, 25 years from now, you might come across somebody that was in your nursery. It's happened to me. And, I felt very old. But actually, this person said, I know you. I think you were the manager of a nursery that allowed me to go and do my social work qualification and I put my child in the nursery. And she had lots of lovely things to say, and that was great. But what was a bit frightening was our daughter, who was now 25 and was a health visitor. But I touched their lives in some small way, and I could have went through my whole life not knowing that. And I think it's important that we understand that we have that ability when we work with children and young people. And so going back to that 23 things, it's just about soaking up that learning. And who doesn't want to learn? And it's not tedious, it's not boring. Well, I hope it's not boring. It's exciting, it's interesting, it's relevant. And I think when people see our new 23 things ELC leadership, I hope that they'll feel that it's relevant to them. We've changed a lot of the pictures. We use lots of pictures of children. It's more vibrant. We're focusing on that age group. I think so. I love the pictures in our 23 things, but for our 23 things early in childcare, wow, it makes you see that this is something special for them, and I think that is important as well. But that's not to diminish at all our 23 things leadership, because as I said before, leadership crosses all sectors, and the leadership capabilities that we talk about, the logic model that we talk about, I won't go into all of that, but that is in all the 23 things leadership. That hasn't changed. How do we get support from our colleagues? How do we know we are a good leader? What makes us a good leader? What do we do as good leaders? What do we bring as good leaders? All of that is the same, whether you work, in adult care or whether you work with early learning and childcare. And I think that's a really important point to remember. So I really hope that people will, not stop going into our 23 things leadership, continue to do that, because it'll be interesting to see the difference that might be.
And you'll have that broadness of feedback, hopefully, and people who have engaged with the 23 things. And then engage with this one. That'll be a lovely to see, has it been worth that investment of time and commitment to create something bespoke to our sector? I don't doubt it'll be well received. And I think going back to that, as you're saying about we're all leaders, we're trying to nurture children in our provision, to be leaders of their own learning. So it goes without saying that we all, just as you say, the person who opens the door, if it's the person who's doing the staff rota, we talk about pedagogical leadership, and everyone who works in early years, is a pedagogical leader. So no, I think it's a really exciting resource. We could, we could talk about and unpick all of them, but this is not what the podcast, is about. It's about raising awareness of this fantastic resource. And again, just for us at Early Years Scotland, so building that relationship with SSSC, for the sector, we are very fortunate that we can have this one-to-one with you, but hopefully it creates a platform that the sector, can be sitting on the bus or on the train, tune in, listen and think, right, okay, what can I take from that? So yes, a huge thank you. So before we kind of wind up, is there anything you wanted to summarise in relation to?
I suppose I'm sitting here thinking how great it would be if you've never ever gone on to our website and seen the 23 Thing Leadership. Wow, you've got a whole world of learning there, and how exciting that is. Now, in some ways, I wish it was me starting again, going, this is great. And just as you just said there, I thought that's really interesting that it's easily accessible, and you can sit on a train and open up the 23 things and do a thing while you're sitting on the train or on the bus. And I think that is the beauty of it. You carry it about in your pocket. It's learning, snapshots of learning that you can carry about. And I really, really hope lots of people listening to this will take that step in and have a look and see what they can take from it, and what they would use it for. And more importantly, how it would change outcomes for our children and young people and families that we work for.
Absolutely, that's the kind of finishing line I was going for. So I'll leave that finishing line to you, Alison, and just to say a huge thank you again for joining this podcast. And we hope everyone has enjoyed it. Take care, everyone, and goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks again for listening. Follow us on Twitter, Facebook and Instagram. If you want to get in touch, please email us at info@earlyyearsscotland.org. Take care and bye for now.